Hopefully everybody's doing all right. I will try my best to look at comments as best as I can. As you can see, a little busy. Once we are ready to get started, we have some other people here. And then I'll be able to possibly go in another spot in the room.
Good morning.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good. You guys just setting up?
Yep. Just setting up, I guess been moving stuff in now. I'm setting up. Are you doing something via email? Yep. Okay, yeah. So my wife, she should be here soon. She should be here soon, and she's bringing a few other people to help out. But I'm just, I guess, here setting up before they get here so that they can finish up and we can start a new building. So.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
All right.
What was the name?
Well, welcome. My name is Scotty.
Scotty?
Yes,
Okay.
and your name?
Kofi.
Kofi?
Yes.
Hi, Kofi. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for being here today.
No problem. Thanks for allowing us to help the people.
We appreciate it.
All right. So, as you can see, I'm not really going to be able to do too much stuff comment-wise, but I'm going to try my best to talk to you guys a little bit as I'm setting up. And so thank you guys who helped us with this part. So this is some of the stuff we go into different places, being able to give out things to the community. When people say, what do you do? So, sometimes people think we just talk or whatever, but we actually try our best to get out there. I do apologize since we have a lot of people coming in. I do apologize for those who were looking for us yesterday. If you were looking for us yesterday, basically Sunday, Monday were really tough days. I haven't been able to contact anybody, and basically almost like once I finally got to our destination, kind of just passed out. I needed to rest. Long story short, we got caught in a snowstorm. Then in the midst of this snowstorm, one of the tires got messed up because we ran over a nail that was buried not only in the middle of the street, but it was buried in the snow. And we finally, after hours and hours of roadside assistance, contacting people who just didn't want to come out and help us because it was snowing, we weren't able to get help. And so all that stuff being said, so basically yesterday we finally got stuff together. Then because we're still traveling, had to make sure that the tire got taken care of. Praise Yah that we have insurance and stuff on that. So we had to go get that taken care of so that I could rest the rest of the day to be able to set up for today and do some other lives. So we're going to still do the live session. We're still going to make sure that we're on track, but the first part of it, you just kind of have to deal with me talking to you guys and moving around a lot at the same time. So hopefully you'll be able to hear me enough. I'm going to try and move this a little bit closer and do a little makeshift setup. But so prayerfully you guys can hang in there with us. We're trying to set up. We're here. I don't know if this is we consider like an elderly building or a nursing home or whatever, but we're here to try and make sure that everybody has what they need. So thank you for being a little patient with me. And as everybody else shows up, then they'll be able to continue to set up and I'll be able to chill out somewhere else. So just kind of want to give you a heads up. Thanks for allowing me to take care of family and stuff because we had everybody on the road with us. So we were all stuck out there together. Praise Yah that, people were willing to let us stay in a couple places that allowed for us to be able to save up for a place to stay warm eventually. And so we just got back to our destination in the middle of yesterday and got everything fixed so we can finish this up. Then as soon as we finish this up, got to pack up again and travel again. So it is the life of a nomadic person, but it is what it is. But just wanted to let y'all know, I didn't mean to skip out on you prayerfully, y'all. I know a lot of people came up looking, but I'll be talking about some things. We might dip into Revelation some. Today we're going to talk about the Greco-Roman road and stuff. So that's why I wasn't on yesterday. A lot of stuff, tire, snow, needed a place to stay, needed to get the tire fixed the next day, and then basically doing the coat drive here before we get ready to travel back down the highways and byways. So, but we're appreciative of you guys being here. So in the beginning, I might not be doing too much in the comment section, but you guys know that we're thankful and grateful to have you guys here. We are excited to be able to serve the community. The lady who is the hookup for this today, she literally was just standing here and told me her name. I cannot remember. nevertheless, though, getting set up to make sure that people have what they need. And somebody actually had gifted this to us. I forget where they were located, but they sent this to us so we could have something to have a little nice setup for people when they come in. So, as I said, prayerfully we'll have some people here to assist soon, so I can go ahead and go into the line. Yeah, I'm saying I kind of want to talk about some stuff. So, not sure if we're going to Revelation or not, so this might be a little pause in the Revelation series. I promise we'll get back into it. I know we're in Revelation chapter 6, and that's where we've been paused. We're staying for a little while now. But I told you guys I've been doing a lot of research and study lately, going back over, Greco-Roman stuff again, really focusing on Caesar and the time of Caesar, roundabout, and focusing on a lot of stuff, and it really gets you back to culture, right? It really gets you back to culture, right? Like a lot of the words that we use and things like that, like cohort, prosecution, triumph. It comes from these places. Even Caesarea is very interesting when I was looking this stuff up. So so for example, if somebody has like a Caesarean section, there's an interesting reason why we have that term Caesarean section, right? It's very interesting where these terms always end up coming from, right? Like, so if somebody has a C section, a Caesarean section, a lot of people don't know, for example, that, and I'm sorry, before I get started, let me do this while I'm setting up. I didn't do so already, but we give may the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our redeemer. It's in his name, which is his authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, protect this message. Aman. Mashe. Hello. So, a grand rising to you. So basically, once again, we give all praise to the Most High. We give all praise to Him for my wife, the honorable mind, who lives a life that's able to be honored. We give all praise and honor to family, to friends, to those who helped us with coat drive stuff, everybody, and continue to help us as we do this all over the place. As you can see, when we're traveling on the road, we're still making sure we get this stuff in. And we're thankful and grateful to everybody. And so, yeah, so I'm not sure exactly. We're just kind of talking right now. Oh, thank you, Sister Sonia. We already know your heart and your actions, sis, but thank you. So, and I'm being mask on, mask off, whenever somebody's around, be respectful of the mask. This is like, in studying stuff, a lot of people don't know where these things come from. A lot of people are not aware of where, words, language, stuff like that comes from. She has some very interesting things that take place in these conversations. So for example, like Caesarean section, C section. Why is a Caesarean section called a Caesarean section? So this is an example, by the way. So people will say, where do you read this stuff, or how do you come up with this stuff? It's a lot of research and a lot of things that when you know a lot of different things that come from a lot of different places, you're able to kind of put this stuff together, right? So that's why we always talk about culture first. That's why culture first is always going to be a huge deal. Everything always starts with culture. No matter what you're talking about, you're always going to be starting with culture. So everything has to start with culture first, right? If we're not going to be honest about that, so that's the stuff we were talking about. So Caesarean section, everybody says a C-section. Matter of fact, a lot of people in the world, some places in the world, they do more C-sections now than they do natural birth. So when we say a C-section, right? And thank you guys very much. Y'all see this all socks. We got a few boxes like this, nothing but socks for people. So that's some of the stuff you guys have been able to help us with. Nevertheless, so when somebody says a C-section, right? What exactly do they mean? What exactly is a C-section or a Caesarean section? What does that actually mean, right? When somebody says a C-section or a Caesarean section, what are we actually talking about, right? So if you look up the history of Caesar, see, it's all his history, it's all culture, right? So somebody will just say cesarean section, and because we don't know culture, we're not really prepared, to have genuine conversation concerning what's just been said. Somebody will say C-section, and we're kind of lost. We kind of don't know what in the world's happening. We just hear the term C-section, right?
Good morning.
Hey, how are you doing?
All right, fine. My name is Crystal.
Oh, okay, nice to
Welcome to Alamo.
All right, thank you, Chris. So, somebody will say something like cesarean section, right? And because we don't know historically where something comes from, you just call it that, but you don't know why it's called cesarean section. That's why we always teach on culture on these rising sessions, right? So, if somebody says cesarean section, it's because there was obviously somebody named Julius Caesar. That's the OG, that's the original, right? So, if you're talking about Caesar, and thank you to everybody who's joining us. Like I said, you're seeing me in the midst of setting up. So after I finish the setup a little, and we get some people here, then I'll be able to go in a little corner and we can continue this conversation. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was just thinking about it. But I was just thinking. I'm trying to. So do we have a lot of people who will be on? There's going to be like a lot of people in wheelchairs and things of that nature coming in?
We will have, there could be some on walkers
Okay.
also.
I'm just trying to think about the flow of things.
Sure, we can move the furniture if it's in your way.
No problem. Well, what I was thinking is I might possibly have it where we can kind of have something kind of in the middle where they can kind of walk on both sides, kind of go around, and we can just come out and we can have a continuous thing that way, even with, like when we're outside, especially where I was thinking about COVID and, health and stuff, so it's probably easier just kind of have the flow of stuff like that. Oh, I hope they brought bags. I didn't bring bags.
So one of the things they'll have to do, you want to call somebody?
No, go ahead. You can go.
Is they'll have to sign in when they come, so I'll
Yes,
have to
ma'am.
sign in, sheet here
Sure.
along with the pen.
Sure, that's
So,
great.
if you have them sign up, I just need to know who actually comes.
No, that's great. Yeah, that's perfect. That's what we do too. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I told you I'm doing setup at the same time. So, anyways, so we're talking about and dig the location. See, look at the blessing. The blessing, right? When you're faithful and stuff. There's a nice little location we have. We're not going to use the whole area, but this is all for to be able to be used. So, so stuff like that we're doing. Yeah. So this is all stuff that we've been blessed to be able to use just for today. Right now, I'm just in one little corner by myself. But we praise God for you all, and thankful and grateful for you all being on with us. But yeah, so when you hear these terms that people use, you hear somebody say something like C-section. Well, Caesar, is the OG, right? So you have Julius Caesar, and Julius Caesar is the one that, who was the person who really was the first Caesar, even though they tried to say he wasn't, and they killed him before he could become a king. That's why they said they killed him, but the reality was they killed him because he was not going to allow them, other people basically weren't going to be allowed to become king before him. We're not taught about that there was a whole civil war, right? And all these terms that we use now, like triumph, parade, conqueror, all these terms that you're using from somebody else's culture when they were taking over other people, and we've just inherited the culture. So you're using the same terms. But getting back to Caesar and Caesarean section. So Caesar's the OG. Caesar gets killed, right? The weird the Ides of March, all that good stuff. So he gets killed by senators, right? By people who supposedly are voted in, but senators don't get voted in the way that you think they do. But nevertheless, he's killed by other senators, right? And so after he's killed, they look at his, what do you call that? His will, I guess. I guess that's what we would call it. It would be an ancient version of a will. And when they look at his will, they come to discover and find out, oh, wait a minute. He has, because Caesar had a whole lot of children, and they come out and they find out, wait a minute, Caesar ended up having he left his whole fortune basically to his one of his mistress's sons, his favorite mistress. He had a lot of mistresses, including Cleopatra, but he had a lot of mistresses, and he left his stuff to his mistress's son, Octavius, who would become the first Caesar, because his name, a lot of people don't know this, because this happens a lot in history, where a lot of people are just named the same thing. Like when we talk about Ptolemy in Egypt, not Kemet, but Egypt, you have to figure out which Ptolemy they're talking about because they're all named Ptolemy, right? But he names himself, once Octavius Caesar, once he had the fortune, he renames himself Julius Caesar. So Octavius Caesar becomes Julius Caesar. So when he becomes Julius Caesar, they actually call him Caesar or Caesarion, right? They call him Caesarion because he's little Caesar. He's the second Caesar. So Caesarion is a way of basically like saying you're the second Caesar. You're Caesar Jr., right? You come from Caesar. Now, that part of it is like, okay, well, where do we get the Caesarian section from, right? Culturally, when somebody says they're getting the Caesarian section, where are we getting the rest of this from? Now, this is the crucial part. This is why you got to be aware of where things are coming from. You're getting the Caesarian section part from the place to where Caesar was cut up. He was stabbed multiple times by those people who were in the Senate. A lot of people who he even have promised, a lot of stuff. So, since he was cut up, and Octavius, who gets the name Octavius or Octavian, that really changed his name to Caesar, and Caesarion, the second Caesar, since Caesar was cut up, and that's how Caesarion ends up coming into power ultimately, when you go to the hospital and you get cut up on so that a child can be born, you call it a C-section, or you call it a Caesarian section. That's why you call it a Caesarian section, because somebody had to be cut up on. All right, in order for the next child to come out. That's why we say culture is big in everything. We're speaking culture. The language that you speak is culture. Remember, even when you talk Willie Lynch syndrome and stuff like that, we've been talking about and stuff. Willie Lynch made a point to say that one of the biggest things, he said language is a very peculiar institution, because if you get the language of something down, he said you got to recognize as soon as that language gets as soon as you understand the language that you're speaking, you can start maneuvering through the system. As soon as the language is down, you can maneuver through the system, no problem, right? And so we're having a lot of stuff like that happens where you've been speaking a language but don't recognize it. So for example, somebody tells you that sovereignty is a bad thing, right? And they call you sovereign citizen. That's a cultural mishap. That's misappropriation of words, of community, of language. Why is that misappropriation? Because there's no such thing as a sovereign citizen. You can only be a sovereign, or you can only be a citizen. If you're a citizen, you belong to something. Oh, thank you. I can clean that up if you... Okay, thank you, I appreciate it. So when people talk about sovereignty, if somebody tells you... Huh?
They only put tennis, right?
I don't know. If you ask, I forget what her name is. We're okay with you getting something on our end. We're okay once we get set up. If once we get set up or whatever, just remind me. I'll look up for it.
You can. I just need some stuff.
No. Okay. Well, let me set the stuff up first, and then I'll keep an eye out for you since you said. Which kind do you want? Do you want the ankle ones, the high ones? Do you want the black, white, gray? I'll set some aside for you as I'm counting it up. You want one of each? You want one of each? Okay. So I'll finish setting up. We got extra, so I'll look out for it. We're gonna look for them first. So yeah. So when you hear stuff like Caesarian section and all these things. That's really where that stuff comes from. Everything is always cultural. Language is always cultural. That's why etymology is important. And all these things we've been doing on these live sessions and in classes and everything else, we're always going to be big on etymology. You're always going to be big on the story against his story. You always have to know these things, right? That's why even when we talked about the Constitution and things like that are cultural.
Oh, no.
Even when we talk about the Constitution and things of that nature, we have to be honest about who is it for, right? We have to be honest about who are these things for, and all these things we're doing, all these things we're talking about, who is it for, right? That's why you have to be careful. So like somebody says, yeah, the Constitution was for yada, yada, yada. Well, like, that's why we make it a point to teach. Well, time out. When the Constitution was originally there, you can't say it was for women, right? When people talk about misogyny and stuff like that, like that's a real thing. Because how many women were allowed to vote when the Constitution was written? The answer is 0, right? So that's a question that people bring up all the time, but you got to be honest about that. How can you talk about women's rights and not realize that women were behind the 8 ball from the beginning, whether they were white or black or whatever? Then we got to get into the conversation of, like we talked about with Sojourner Truth, right? Sojourner Truth had to come up and say, ain't I a woman? So was Sojourner Truth considered to be somebody that was fought for, right? What we'll hear is Susan B. Anthony and Sojourner Truth were best friends. But that's not true at all. Matter of fact, when Sojourner Truth said, ain't I a woman, and gave that speech, she had to do so, right, when her fellow sisters, so to speak, didn't want her to come and speak, because they said that her oppression was not their oppression. So nowadays, when you hear somebody say that we don't have the same oppression. I'm sorry, what time?
8:25.
Okay. I don't know where everybody else is. All right, I'll speak it. So yeah, so when we're dealing with this stuff, we got to have honest conversation about what's going on. These are things that are necessary to speak on. These are things that speaking on things.
I'll make an announcement. Hey, Miss Sarah. Hi. Hello.
Sorry, as you can hear, people are showing up. They're ready to get help and leave because I'm waiting on everybody else to come on. So we got to have, more honest conversation. We got to have more, we have to look at things culturally. Why do we call something a triumph? What is a triumph? The people know where the triumph comes from. A triumph is not, something that's a great thing. A triumph just means that you basically blasted a group of people. After a triumph, you kill off leaders. So if you look at famous leaders like Vercingetorix, if you look at famous leaders like Cleopatra, if you look at famous leaders, the list goes on and on and on, even Roman leaders, right? They would even, I'm trying to remember the term, it's something like prosecute, but that's not what I'm looking for. But they had a term, something like prosecute or something like that, where you literally were supposed to, but it's not prosecute, it has something to do with money, it's like the PR sound. But basically when you heard that term back in the day, or back in their time, they were saying that they were going to do something to mess people up. That if you didn't fit into their triumvirate, right? So triumvirate is different than triumph, right? So the original triumvirate was, once again, going back to Julius Caesar. A lot of this stuff starts around his time because he had his hands in so many different things that a lot of things that we still do to this day come from him, including the calendar that you use, all this stuff, right? But if you're going to talk about a triumvirate, the original triumvirate was Caesar and 2 other gentlemen. And those guys basically made it a point to say that you had to, what is it I'm trying to say? Basically, those guys made it a point to say that they were the ones that ran the whole country. That's where you get the tri from. It was 3 of them that were together. So when you see triumph, triumvirate, things of that nature, that's where it comes from. Now, they changed the language of things, they changed the definition so that you'll think that triumph means that somebody won. No, triumph is try. You got to have 3 people in position, right? You got to have 3 branches of government, right, in order to have a triumph. Did y'all catch that? Hopefully you did. Hopefully you're hearing me all right. I know I'm a little far away. I'm all over the place. I'm trying to protect my voice as best as I can, right? But that's what a triumph is. You can't have a triumph if you don't have multiple people working together, because you got to have at least 3. Well, you got to have 3 people in order for it to be a triumph. If it was if it was 4 people, it'd be a quadrumph. If it was 5, it'd be a quintumph, right? If it was 2, it'd be something different. If it was 10, it'd be something different, right? 10 would be decutrump or something like that, a decutrump. But if you have a triumph, that's a whole different thing. And the triumph is speaking to what? The triumph is speaking to three groups of three people that come together. That's the triumph. All right? So, you know, you got to understand, like, when people say triumph, when people say they paraded, we're going to parade something around. Parade was something, and by the way, you know, the parade, triumph, all those things, they're coming from, you know, they're coming from position. Let me make sure I save this brother these socks that I said I was going to save him. You're coming from a position where you are dealing with, you know, more than one. You're dealing with, you're dealing with three things coming together. So if somebody talks about I want to have triumph, you got to understand the word, the language. And that language was something, if you had a triumph and you had a parade to show the triumph, what you were doing was you were going to parade people you had conquered already. Right? You were going to parade these people around and you were going to show them off. And you were going to allow people to throw stuff at them, to yell at them. You possibly at the end were going to kill these people. That was what was going on at the end of a parade and a triumph. Right? So when you did these things, that's what you were dealing with. That's what you were dealing with, the triumph you were dealing with. And that's where, you know, so when you have people that talk about triumph and say, you know, hey, it doesn't matter, facts over feelings, who cares how people get hurt, you know, Republican versus Democrat, left versus right, these are all terms that are Greco-Roman terms that you're still utilizing and using today because somebody told you to focus on those things rather than focus on what, you know, or focus on what they're telling you these meanings are rather than actually teach you where these meanings and terms and things came from. Right? And that's it. That's a problem that we have still to this day, is that people are still arguing over things that don't really have anything to do with you personally. And you're arguing things that when you look at it, you say, I don't know if I want anything to do with that. I don't know if I really want anything to do with the triumph. I don't know if I really want anything to do with the parade. In our Revelation series, though, that's part of the problem that we're having, right? We're having a bunch of people who are out here. Oh, wow. Ugh. I hate that when people tie knots and then they tie them so tight you can't get into the stuff. Somebody here tied put stuff in 2 bags and put 2 sets of knots. I can't even get to the stuff. All right. But yeah, so, wow, this stuff is nice. Y'all see this? Thank you, guys. Stuff like this. Thank you. Right? So when you talk about a triumph, you're talking about something completely different than what you might think, right? You're speaking on something that has a lot of history attached to it, so to speak. Right? When you're speaking about a triumph, that's what you're speaking about something completely different than what you learned in school. So when you talk about a triumph, you're talking about something you and I learned about in school. Right. And so because of that, you've got to be aware that we've been trained wrong, we've been taught wrong, and we're fighting the wrong thing. We're fighting against each other rather than fighting against the oppressor. The oppressor's out there giving you triumph, and they're the ones triumphant because they're 3 in 1, and you're trying to fight them by yourself, and we're not even the people fighting together. So that's what we're talking about, all these words, all this etymology, all these things, whether you want to talk about the Torah, you can talk about your canon, your Bible, etc., etc. You got to recognize who you're talking about and whose language you're speaking, right? Whose language are you even speaking when you're utilizing these words and these terms? Once again, language is a peculiar institution. It gives you culture, right? Language is a peculiar institution. It gives you what? It gives you culture. So if you don't know the culture or something, you'll be in trouble. So, these are the things that we have to be honest about, have honest conversations about. People aren't willing to. Thank you to the moderators, by the way. Probably some stuff going down I can't see, so I thank you guys. Appreciate you. So I'll be able to pick up the phone in a second. We're gonna have people coming in a little bit. I'll still be working, but they're gonna be moving around, so I'm gonna have to be a little more mobile and get rid of this setup I have in the middle of the floor. These are the things that we have to have better conversations about and teach people about. When you're utilizing these words and these terms, and we don't really know what they mean, right? So how do you know, so if somebody says that I'm going to triumph or I'm going to have victory, how do you become a triumphant person? If somebody says they're a victor, when people say there's victor versus victim mentality, or people say victim blaming, all this stuff, you can't be a victor, right? You can be a victor if you aren't somebody who's willing to change history or change the story into his story. That's right. To the victor goes the spoils. So when these people keep talking about victor, there are people who are okay with lies. That's what a victor is. A victor is somebody who wins, or who is going into a thing trying to win, so they can come up with lies to support a position that was never true in the first place. That's what a victor is, right? They can start getting ready to come in like five more minutes at the most, and then I'm by myself. So I'm trying to. I thought other people would be here, but it's just me by myself right now. But I should have enough to where these people can start coming in about 5 minutes at the most. So yeah. So when we're talking about victim, all this stuff like that, you have to be ready for those things. Prayerfully, everything's all right with everybody. Y'all keep everybody in prayer. Because I'm not blaming either, right? We got to be careful that we don't blame either, right? But prayerfully, things are okay with everybody who's coming to help. But we got to have a different mentality. And you have to understand the mentality of the person who's coming against you. You have to think about what somebody else means. When they tell you victor doesn't mean what you and I think victor means. Right? Even when we sing these songs, victory, that's my name, victory, I know who I am. Well, do you know what victory is? And you want to keep calling yourself victor. People who call themselves victors, of course, they hit you with the all lives matter stuff, because victors can change whatever the situation is to suit them. It's called idealism. And they'll tell you that an ideal, I-D-E-A-L, is something that you should hold fast to, and you should be excited about, and you should make sure that everybody's okay with, and all that. But an ideal literally means that you're somebody who builds something and creates something and makes something up to fit your narrative. Right? That's what an ideal is. So if somebody says that's not ideal, they're telling you that that's not something that I think fits my narrative, so I need to make up something else. You see how culture comes in? So all these terms people are using, even when we get into stuff like Revelation or the Torah or the Bible, the Guide, etc., what are we arguing? Right? From whose point of view? Whose language? Whose culture? Because if you don't have a culture of making things up just so you can be right, then you shouldn't be worried about ideals, I-D-E-A-L, because that's just something somebody does to fit a narrative. You should be concerned about facts and context, contextual facts, even, right? These terms that we keep using over and over again. Right? But we're having arguments with people about different things simply because it's not part of our culture. Right. And since it's not part of your culture, it's not part of your language, maybe you should hold back on some of those things, right? We should hold off on just executing what somebody else wants to execute or saying what somebody else wants us to say. All right, yeah. Yeah, do you want to sign in? Get ready to come through in a second. I'm sorry, I'm running behind. I'm by myself. So, but we'll go in the order you guys sign and we'll start coming in. Even if I'm not fully set up, we got enough for you guys to do that. Y'all see too, this is why I do this to help. Those of you over. But yeah, I'm moving around a little bit. I said, give me a few minutes. I'm trying to finish up. But yeah, we pretty much getting ready to start.
I nobody's name. I know what I was telling.
When we start coming through, so what we do is we just have like 2 people coming in at a time. I'll just go off of the list. So we just have 2 people coming in at a time, and as people start flowing through or whatever, and then as you come, you can just come out through this little gap and come right around, and then the next set of people can come on in. All right, that's to make it easy for everybody, and everybody can keep their distance and all that stuff. Yeah, I'm just read off the list. So you got Valerie Sampson and Yolanda. All right, y'all come on. I'm still waiting on people, so I don't have bags right now.
I'm gonna get you a coat. No, I'm not.
Put sports in some of the stuff. I need some more stuff. Hey, thank you.
I don't know if you guys want to hang in there or not. I'm still waiting for.
Me and her, they put their name in
All right, yes,
front
ma'am. I'm still waiting for.
Yeah, they so slick. Sarah, we was down here first.
It's okay.
We was so down here, quarter of 8 this guy. Then everybody, you seen us when you came in.
Okay, all right, y'all too.
I ain't arguing with nobody. I ain't arguing with nobody. 'Cause I don't want nothing.
Okay. So as you guys can see. So I'm trying. We're gonna have a little bit of a wait. I'm gonna try and see if I can find out via text real quick if y'all can hold on where everybody's at, because I'm supposed to be talking to you guys. So we'll see what's going on. As you can see, things have gotten started. So if y'all give me a second, if y'all want to hang in there, I'm gonna go away from your screen real quick. I'm gonna text. And then once we get to this place of once I finish with the texting, then I'll be right back. Hopefully by then I'll be able to go.
Wait, I'm taking my time.
That's good, and that's the small.
Is there a limit?
Well, for right now, I guess if you can just do one coat, for one coat, and maybe no more than 2 pairs of socks. But everything else should be fine.
2 pair of socks at this time.
Everything else should be fine.
We're just getting clarity, so.
Take it.
We had it was Terrence and it was Terrence and Charlotte.
Yeah, right here.
Okay, you can go over. Don't look like I got too much men's stuff today. I thought I had a men's coat, but somebody must have taken it. All right, y'all. It's a clothes drive for everybody. Right now, we usually do more homeless coat drives than anything else, but today is for people who are in this building. I don't think it's a nursing home, but it's something like that, like an elderly home, something like that, or housing, public housing, something like that we're in. But yeah, but I'm gonna be right back with you guys. I'm gonna text somebody real quick. Never mind. Here come the group right here. Yeah. So hold on 1 second. I'm not fully set up.
Okay.
But just trying to, if you want to stay around for me, because like I was saying, I thought I saw men's. I don't know if somebody grabbed the men's when they were in here. Okay, well if you don't mind, maybe just sit over there. I'll keep you in mind. I'm sorry.
Okay, because I need to.
Okay, all right, we'll look for it. You said children's stuff, right?
Okay, yeah.
I'm not sure what everything is. Hold on. I'm sorry. You can just hold on. I'm gonna call the name. Oh wait a minute, sir. We only went 2 times. I'm gonna call the names and then on the list in order. So when I call your name, you come in. You got what you got. I get a block. Okay, I understand that, sir. So once again, the way that I discussed it, make sure people are satisfied, that we make sure you do everything in line. No, I'm just saying, I'll put that. And you better be satisfied.
Mom, can you help me put these on those right? Yeah, I'll
I'll be calling you back. Thank you.
Dad, I see the man's clothes. I see the man's clothes.
You see more men's clothes?
Yes.
I don't think he's in men's clothes, but there are more stuff. There is more stuff in there. Where's your? Come on. Call it children's church.
Accessories all mixed up.
The lady that I picked up from last time. No. Yeah, he can sit there.
There's children here.
Oh, yeah, there's children's stuff out there. Yeah, we can set up some children. I didn't set any children's stuff up because I didn't even need children over here, but yeah, we got children. Alright, hold on 1 second, y'all. Almost ready. Yeah, we're still looking for the. You were looking for the mascot, right? Okay. All right. Okay. If I find something, I'm set it aside for you. What's the what's your like 663 something? Okay. He said he's gonna do it too. He got some children stuff he like to do. And if we find a man to the first 3 things or something they do on another order and stuff.
I guess I'll be there.
She was. Julia?
That's me.
And you was Karen?
Karen.
Oh, okay. You can come on there. That's the word. I'm just making sure because we had an issue. Yeah, we had an issue with it earlier.
What did you do with the kids? I put it on this rack right here. Okay, there are kids here.
No, he told you.
Okay. I get the liquor, but you video. Right. Oh, is it John? Oh, hi.
I found one.
Okay, God, yeah.
I found one.
Oh. Okay. I don't know.
I don't know if more people are going to come in the second week. I'm not sure. What was your name, sir? Okay. In just a second, yeah. You need stuff for you and for them? Yeah. Okay. All right. You doing all right, sir? Thank you for coming to help me. All right. Okay. We didn't have as much as we normally do.
Yeah.
Especially without putting the children stuff in. But we got enough to at least make sure everybody.
How long was the live right there?
I just put it up there like maybe 2 minutes ago.
Okay, cool.
I mean, I've been doing a live since I've been here, but when I was setting up, I was doing it off of this facing me. But nobody was here except me. Oh, yeah. Did you already have a chance to sign in?
Yeah, I tried, yeah.
You signed in already? Okay. What was,
My name, William.
William? Okay, hold on 1 second. We just having we trying to just have a few people in there at a time. So, we got, hold on. You're up next. Did you already have a chance to sign in, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm Andrew Jackson.
Oh, I don't think I have that on here. You said you signed in already?
No, I didn't sign in here. I signed in on.
Oh, yeah. If you can just sign on here for me. Thank you. Yeah, that's me how I was doing. Yeah. Mr. William, can you hold on a second, sir? Like that was there? We're gonna call you by name when it's there. We still got. Oh, never. All right, go ahead. Go ahead. All right, sir. You can go ahead. I didn't let anybody in, sir, but yeah, you'll be up next. So once I call your name, if it's on the list, as soon as I call your name, you can come on in. Did you have a chance to sign in, sir?
No.
Okay, can you? All right. So you'll be up next. I think you're up next, sir. So when I call the next name, it should be you. So hopefully, if you're in the area, I'm sorry. Hold on 1 second. Let me make sure. Get these together. Just put your name right there. Thank you very much. When we get ready to finish, babe, when we finish, I'm gonna take a picture of their list, and then we can use that for our list too. I was trying to tell them to try and see about. Well, actually, it's fine. We got through the main group of people, so it should be all right.
Once you back here, they just pick
I mean, it was at first them doing just one coat and then kind of. Yeah, that's fine now because it's pretty much the main group of people came through. Yeah, if you find a men's coat, I don't think we have any left, but if you find a men's coat, we're supposed to be saving it for a gentleman. He went upstairs to get some clothes for the children. Hello, welcome. Can you sign in for us? And then we'll
My
just.
name is Sarah Sheldon.
What is it?
You, Sarah? Or
Sarah.
you want me to sign here?
I mean, if you're okay with this, sure. Yeah. Sarah. Yeah, and we'll call you by name. All right, thank you. Yep, so we just got, I think, 2 before you. But I think we got 2 before you, but they're both men, so it shouldn't affect you too much. And if anybody needs any hand sanitizer or... Yeah, sorry, y'all. I thought I had points. Things are flowing a lot differently than I thought they would, but we at least got the stuff going. Okay. So I'm gonna be a little bit away from the stuff. I'm sweating. Let's see. Hold on. So I'm gonna back off a little bit now that I got some help. I can talk to y'all a little more than what I was speaking. Whew. Thank you for your patience. Those that hung in there. Andrew? No, Andrew. You can come on. So when I call the next name, then you see how I put that check right there? You can put the check next to him when I call the next name, okay? All right. Yeah, so we have, you want to take your jacket off? No? Okay. So I don't even remember at this point what we were talking about. We just kind of talking at this point. I think we're talking about language and things like that. But, yeah, so all these different things that are going on, thanks to people like you, this is some of the stuff that we do as far as the work and everything. When we're asking for things, if you guys give donations, if you guys are spending extra time to help out things of that nature, this is part of what we do. So when we say coat drive and things like, as far as that, that's what we're speaking on. Hello, can you sign in for us, please? Can you sign it? You give him the pen, sir? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so these are the things that we are trying to make sure that we do as a benefit for the community. And this is the stuff that we have to start doing, And this type of stuff we like to start instituting, not just meeting up, everybody here and here. So yeah, we'll call your name out, and then when we call your name, you can just come on through. We can get the next person on here. Nathaniel? All right, you put a check next to his name? You put a check, look, put a check, found it. Put a check right there. You know how to do a check? Okay, good. Great job. There you go. I haven't came up with a men's jacket yet, sir. Are we looking?
I just got this stuff in here too much, so I just got this stuff.
Now we can put it on the next page. Everybody's checked off on that page. And so when I call the next name, then you just check them off, okay? And so this type of thing that we're doing here, by the way, is great too, because this is something that we want to institute. So when we talk about instituting things and I'm doing things for the community, things like that. Yes, ma'am. Oh, did you get a chance to meet Maya?
No.
Maya, this is
Hi, it's Scotty.
Scotty.
Hey, Maya. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Little babe. There you go.
No.
She said they could get
She said that they can get bags.
Yeah. The one with the black.
Yeah, my wife. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Cause that's how I get my name is Kofi. You got these first when I came in.
Okay. Skip. Maya. Because we're gonna need bags. We can take some of the stuff back, but.
Excuse me.
No. Okay. Hey, babe. Maya. You said they could take bags.
Just one.
Oh, okay. So you said she could take a bag.
No, but I guess if she has, she can go ahead.
Well,
Okay.
She said,
I was just giving it to the guy because he had a bunch of boys' clothes.
Okay, that's fine. Now I know that she got the bag. She got the bag, and that he was saying that you said to get bags, and I was like, well, I don't know because I know we gotta take some back. It's fine. It's fine.
No,
I'm not mad. I'm not.
No.
I'm not mad or anything. I'm just trying to make sure that we. Okay, I appreciate it. Yeah, you were looking out for somebody. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. So this type of stuff, what we're trying to do, not just trying to make sure we meet up in person and stuff like that, but we're trying to make sure we do stuff like this nationwide, right? As we keep growing in these regions, things like that. No, but he's not that well. He came through. See, and that's why you got to have love for people. You got to go outside yourself, right? The guy came through earlier, and he was asking about something. He was in line, there were two ladies that weren't in line. They made a big fuss to make sure that they got in front of the line, and then got the lady who set the thing up to make sure that they could skip in the line, right? Then they immediately went for the one, because we were limited on men's stuff today. So because of what we were told to be ready to give out. So there was one men's coat that would have been his size. And the lady immediately went to it and got it. So obviously she's not gonna wear it for herself. She got it either for somebody else or she got it to sell. Because sometimes people do that at coat drives. So basically he, even though he was supposed to be called out first, somebody else came in and took his stuff, right? That's why you have to love on people. Because people do some wild stuff. That's why you gotta show love even when people don't want to hear it. Hold on 1 second, let me.
I just put the telephone. You said you got to sign out.
Oh, so, okay, this is you?
I'm Terrence Mitchell.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I thought you were saying, okay. Because I was going to say, if I find one, because if we have some other stuff, so what I was thinking is, if you can maybe, even if it's an email, whatever, you ain't got to be your phone number, but if there's some way I can get in contact with you, then if I mean, yeah, but it's, well, all right, I can try and see if I can call the building and somehow, some way get a direct message to you.
My number.
Yeah, what I was saying.
I actually do also volunteer donation work too.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, no, because what I was going to say is, if I get a way to contact you, when I get something your size, I can just, bring it over next time I'm in town.
The number is...
Where's your name's on here?
Let me put my number.
Yeah, if you can just put it there for me, and then I'll remember
Yes, sir.
to make sure I get in contact with you.
And because, like I said, I do volunteer work for Generosity Global.
Mm-hmm.
And we also had a shower unit for the homeless.
Oh, okay.
Deal with a lot of that. So
Oh, that's great. Sarah?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. You can go ahead. Thank you. Solomon, go ahead, put a check mark next to Sarah's name this time.
Oh no, she was waiting for the name to come.
Yes. Oh, I guess he can come on. Yeah. I just called Sarah. She just came in, so he's.
It's good.
It's good. Okay, put it. Put a check next to his name.
Oh yeah.
All right. Y'all have a great one.
Oh, you too.
All right, young man. Y'all have a good one. Yeah. 8:30 in the morning, 8:30, 10:30. I just maybe. So if I.
If this is like an ongoing, because I was thinking about doing clothing drives also. So if we want to come back and do it,
Yeah. So. Oh, we out here doing the coat drive. I was supposed to help set up for the coat drive and then do the live, but it turned into me doing both at the same time. Both at the same time. So, but yeah. So, I don't know. And all this stuff, but this is cultural. So once again, stuff like this is stuff that we like to do when we talk about meeting up and doing things as far as nation building and doing things in different areas. This is the type of stuff too. We don't want to just get together and just have assembly, just have quote unquote church unquote, right? We want to get together and make sure that we actually do something of value, right? And so, and this is stuff that obviously we don't have to be present for, right? Everybody can go around their own neighborhood and say, hey, can you donate this? Can you donate this? Can you donate this? Now that we're calling each other and making sure that we're getting in contact with each other, all we got to do is say, hey, we got a lot of people that live in New York. We got a lot of people that live in Baltimore. We got a lot of people that live in D.C. We got a lot of people that live in Chi-Town, right? And just say, hey, all it takes is 2 people come together, set up some tables, give out some clothes, possibly get some water, something like that. It's not that hard, right? So this is the type of stuff we want to start doing. So obviously, I can't wait to make sure I'm meeting up with everybody on a regular basis. But the goal is not just to say, okay, now we got assemblies where people physically meet up, right? What's the point of the exercise? So a lot of stuff that we're talking about is stuff that, it takes time to do and time to implement. And that's why this year, last year, really, you started seeing me slow my roll. There's a lot of stuff we should be able to do just like that, but we can't skip past certain steps. And showing love to the community is something that's great. So you guys are showing love already, obviously, like when you give your donations and sending clothing, some of you sent financial donations, etc. It's been a blessing to be able to receive these things, right? But we also want to make sure that we're in a position where there's growth, and there's different, where there's growth and there's a lot of different things we can do to ensure that we're moving in the right direction, so we can actually, going back to what we were talking about earlier, triumph, we can actually have victory, all these words, those things come when your community does well, the diaspora does well, and if the diaspora is suffering, then how are we any different than anybody else, right? You said, well, the life we are living in is so different than just 3 years ago. Amen, yeah. We went to feed the homeless and found one person can only feed. Oh, really? Huh. That might be a state or a city thing, because some people don't like you feeding homeless, because if you feed the homeless and they're like, oh, we'll have homeless around. And since there's classism, that having a homeless person around is something that's supposed to be a terrible thing. And so I could believe it. In Texas, okay. So if we did one, we'd have to be careful about that area. Or, if they want to be able to do something like that, if you feed them, then it's like, all right, well, if we're going to feed, 100 homeless, then that means we got to have 20 people show up. And if you do it correctly, we could just be like, okay, 5 of y'all show up, do it from this time to this time. 5 more of y'all show up, do it from this time to this time. 5 of y'all show up, doing this time, 5 of y'all show up, and then we had the first 5 come back again, and the second 5 show back again, or whatever, right? And at that point, it's like, oh, well, and then you play, and then, you don't even got to, first of all, we don't even need to play dumb or play stupid, right? We just basically just say like, hey, there's nothing in your law that says that we can't feed them multiple times a day, right? How much does it cost to go to Texas? It depends on when and where and how, But, I'm not saying we got to do that right now. I'm just saying wherever we are. You obviously look at your laws and different things like that. Like, I can tell you, like in D.C., I can literally just show up on a corner somewhere and just start giving out clothes. If I'm in Times Square, if I just start going around to people and giving clothes to people as they sitting there, ain't nobody going to say anything, If I go to Atlanta, people be sitting all over the place. So I just set up a table somewhere and I just start giving out clothes. Heck, some of the best places to do it in everywhere. When we did it in Chi-Town or whatever, like you go to like a Greyhound bus station. Anywhere in almost on the planet, you're gonna find a lot of homeless people that need stuff at the bus station. So you go there. So there's a lot of different ways to be able to have that stuff come together. But first things first, trying to make sure we have a family environment, family atmosphere. We're helping each other, right? Because that's John 13, 34, 35. By this will men know that you are my disciples, by the way you love one another. So love one another the way that I have loved you. When we start loving each other, we'll know we're disciplined in this thing. We get each other going, then we start going out to say, okay, we as a community, how can we go out and make sure that others who are struggling can be taken care of? And then you keep going on and on and on past that. And that's where you get, the pickup for something. Because what we've been taught is, make sure that you come together, stay in the building, and then, eventually every once in a while, once the building looks good enough and once everybody's paid enough inside the building, then we'll go out to the community. And meanwhile, we won't make sure we help people with bills. So people will tithe, but we won't teach you about money. People will tithe, but we won't make sure that your bills are taken care of as well as we can, which is a backwards, mentality, right? And so Silk said the country food stores rather than the needies, they chose to throw it away. Yeah, that's something else I've been looking into, because a lot of people have a lot of stuff set up like that. I don't really do nonprofit stuff, but if I were to do a nonprofit, it probably would be something like that, because that's simple. What food are you throwing away? Okay, you throwing away this much food or whatever. We'll take it off your hands. You don't have to throw it away, and we'll go ahead and give it to people. Right? Like that's an easy one, and that's something that is legally done all over the country. If people are throwing away food anyways, and the crazy part is people are throwing away the food because it's like a catch-22. I can actually, as much as people are gonna say this might be a capitalist mindset of mine or like creeping in or something, I can actually, as somebody who's worked in restaurants, I can comprehend somewhat. Because here's the deal. Here's the overall thought process. This is why people, when you say, why do they throw away so much food? And we just automatically assume it's because everybody's evil, right? It can be because we're wasteful, but a lot of times this is what happens with with people when they throw away food. And really, if we did it correct, I think we should actually. I was just thinking, if we really did it correct, we probably should, instead of just food that restaurants are throwing away, we should probably just ask people if they're throwing away food that we'd show up at their door. That actually would probably be a lot of stuff too. That's probably a part of the market nobody's really taking into account, other than, canned food giveaways every once in a while. And, if you're not going to finish something, or if you got food, obviously, if it's something you chewed on or something, we discard that. But, if you have a whole, like, people be having whole plates of food, fast food, all types of stuff, and it just sits. And it's like, why not have something set up in somebody's building where it's like, oh, okay, this food's sitting this and that or whatever. Well, I'll just go ahead. There's a refrigerator in the building somewhere, and it says SOC on it or something like that. And we can just go and get the food out of there or whatever, and you can just give it to somebody. We don't have to warm it up for people and stuff, but you can go ahead and grab something that's there, right? We'd have to work that out, because you got to be careful about disease and all that stuff. Like I said, somebody might be we don't want to put something half-eaten and somebody's eating somebody's half-eaten stuff, right? But nevertheless, getting back to, hold on one second. Let me make sure somebody's on too. Hello. Oh, okay. I thought somebody was coming in for the cook drive. Were you coming into looking into? Oh, okay. All right. Imagine if you took that. All right. So the reason why people throw away food and stuff at the restaurant and stuff the way that they do is not just because people are evil or this and that. It has a lot to do with the people that work for you, because a lot of people aren't trustworthy. And so what I mean by, I'm not saying everybody, but as somebody who's managed a bunch of restaurants stuff before in the past and has worked in fast food, worked in fine dining, all this stuff, whatever. I had a lot of different jobs in my life, right? Have fed people over and over again, on the street. What I can tell you is that a lot of times people will mess up food, and then the messed up food is something that they'll eat, which is what people used to do. Like, okay, we messed up an order. Like, let's say you were at, I don't know, I never worked for them, but let's just say you were working at McDonald's. You're working at McDonald's, and somebody wanted a Big Mac with just ketchup on it. They said no mustard, no mayonnaise, just ketchup, right? They said cheese is fine, just mustard. See how I'm messing up already? Somebody comes and they say, hey, I want a Big Mac. All I want on it is the burger, the cheese, and ketchup. I don't want special sauce. I don't want mayonnaise. I don't want mustard. I just want the burger, the bread, cheese, and ketchup, and that's it, right? I said, no mayonnaise, no mustard, just what I said. Somebody says, okay, no problem. They come through to pick up their order, and what does it have? Somebody didn't put no, they just put mustard and mayonnaise. They didn't put no mustard, no mayonnaise, right? So that gets messed up. Somebody fixes it, gives them what they asked for, but we have this extra burger. So you could keep it and hope that maybe somebody orders the same thing, but if they don't, it'll go bad, or maybe somebody can have it for free. What happens though is people start messing up orders on purpose, right? So they'll start messing it up on purpose just to make sure they got something to eat later on. And so some people did that to start just throwing away stuff so that people wouldn't get used to, hey, every time we mess up, we can get a free order, because they wanted you to focus. Now, there's great and bad that comes with that, but at the end of the day, that's what people started doing, right? So you said you were Chuck E. Cheese, right? A lot of people did it, right? So I didn't really care, and I figured like if you took care of your people, made the work environment fun and stuff like that, people were going to be cool with it or whatever, and follow whatever you guys were saying because the environment was set. But a lot of people did that, so that's why they started instituting that. So it's not just a thing of this, that, whatever. But the problem is too with that, they throw it away. And they don't make sure they try to save it for somebody else. They don't really have like a refrigerator or something like that that's just for, all right, maybe somebody will pick this up. So they won't keep that stuff, and maybe they will give tomatoes, lettuce, things like that. Fast food restaurants don't really donate food the same way that the other places do anyways, but I'm just giving an example, right? There's a lot of stuff where people mess up on purpose. So you'd be surprised, but that's a very untapped resource. And a lot of stuff is thrown away because if people are losing money on it, or people will do all types of stuff with the stuff that's there. But I don't care. Like, if it's trash, it's trash. If somebody wants to dig in the trash to be able to get something to feed themselves, like, why would you care about it? I'm on that part of it, but I do comprehend, like, there's money stuff that comes with it. There's some people that put stuff in trash. There's some people that, really aren't even trying to, like they're looking, I don't know, like there's people that are doing all types of wild stuff with things that are being there, whatever, then if it's connected to your establishment. But, long story short, at the end of the day, if people really set things up correctly, if somebody wants something, they want it. If somebody needs something, I don't even care. Like, I'm the type of person, look, if I give you $5 and you use it on crack, like, that's not my problem. That's between you and the Most High. You got to figure that out. But if I give it to you specifically, like, hey, bless yourself, get something to eat, if that's what we're talking about, and you do something outside of that, that's not on me, that's on you. That Walgreens throws stuff out, can't give out box and ship back to the warehouse. They have to keep track. Yeah, dumpsters are always filled with great food. Matter of fact, if we be real, if we keep it 100, now I get it, people are spending their money, right? But if we keep it 100, a lot of stuff that people say, like, oh, these tomatoes aren't fresh. It might have like a little spot on it that you could cut out, and tomatoes fine, right? But they'll throw it away because the customer said that it's not fresh and they touched it. Well, if I am willing to take it, cut out the bad part, and wash it, then that tomato's fine. Matter of fact, even if I didn't want to do all that, if I just cut out a piece of tomato and of that one tomato, I could take pieces of that. Like, literally, we could literally do this. This is what I'm saying. Like, you have to flow in the spirit, but you got to have people that are connected. As you can see, even as Rising, really, you got to have people in place to make sure that this stuff flows. But you could literally do a thing where if somebody said, like, for example, the tomato's bad or this apple's rotten or this and that or whatever, fine. Like, I'll come, let's get the seed. And let's make sure that we clean the seed off, get the flesh off, cut the little part off that's going to mess up to where you can't, you can't actually eat the seed or whatever. And let's get all that stuff together. And then we'll go ahead and take that, and we can just take the seeds and plant them. And now we're starting gardens, and we can ship those things to people. Hey, if we want to, we can maybe do it for finance, and it becomes a fundraiser. Like, that's something that's not that hard to do. But, we don't think about it in that way. Once again, culturally, right? You have to think that way. You said you try hard not to, comprehend what they're saying and not judge. Yeah. You said Obadiah was on your mind? Well, I don't even have the Bible with me right now, so you'd have to give me which verse. Oh, no problem, Trinity. I don't even know what was on. What were you talking about? Hey, low key, how you doing? He said, "It's none of my business what someone does with a gift. Giving reviews my agency over to get boom." That's it, right? Like, if I give you love, even like real talk, if I give you love, that ain't like, if you want to receive the love, that's up to you. If you don't want to receive the love, you don't have to receive it either, right? If I give you a gift of time, you can take my time seriously and use it wisely, or you don't have to use it at all, right? That's not my problem, right? If I give you food, I've had people that have given food and gotten mad that I gave them food because they said they wanted money for food. I said, well, I don't have money for food. You can have my meal. So obviously they didn't want the food. They threw it down, threw a fit. That had nothing to do with me. I didn't, I got a little frustrated, but I didn't even really get mad because I was like, look, I gave you the food. If that's what you decided to do with it, then that's what you did with the gift that you got. But that had nothing to do with me, right? Like, that's on somebody else. That's not on you. And the majority of people on the street you meet in the UK are either alcoholics or drug addicts. Man, there are a lot of them. I wouldn't say every single one of them, and I wouldn't necessarily say every single one of them started off that way either. Unfortunately, though, bad times do a lot of things to a lot of people, right? So, a lot of people, deal with a lot of different things. COVID camps now coming to America. I mean, they're trying. That's why you got to make sure that you got a place to go. It's going to take a long time for it. But people are trying to support that mess. Like, there's people that support stuff all the time talking about, it's good that they won't give people health care because they won't get a shot. So you just got to be prepared for that. So when you worked at Jerry's Bar and used to pack it up, they said it was fine, precaution for nuts and dairy. Oh, okay. What's my thoughts on the camps coming to America? I mean, there's already camps in America. They're called prisons. And there's all types of camps. There's slave camps and here where people make stuff. So the idea of another camp is basically make sure that you have stuff set up where you don't have to worry about it. Like, the least The fewer things that you're doing as far as benefit and privilege, the better. So, you know, one of the reasons why I'm slow to do certain things and just jump into certain things too is you have to understand, like, all right, like let's say somebody wants to go out and get a job. Somebody wants to go out and get a job. If you're going out and you go and get a job, one of the issues that you have is that now you got to get tested every day, right? Or it's going to get to every day, but you know, right now it's once a week. You have to make sure that you fall into line with certain categories, etc., whatever. If you don't, then what they'll do is, right now, there's legal ways to make sure that you're protected, but still, you know, they're going to do everything they can to try and press you. Now, if you have to go through that every week, right? The second that all of a sudden you're not in line with something is the second that now they can say we'll send you to this camp. We got to close you off. You got to stay in your house. If you come out your house for any reason, right? Now we're going to say this, that, or whatever. And we're going to have a lot of people scared, right? To where they think that is. And so this is like the new Republican Democrat thing, you know? That's why people who are Republican fall in line with one side and people who are Democrat fall in line with the other, right? It's a new Republican Democrat thing where you wear it where you want when everybody should have the freedom, right? Or not masks, excuse me, the shots. Everybody should have the freedom to be able to do what causes them to be safe. Oh, okay, cool. You know, everybody should be doing the thing that causes them to be safe and causes them to be in position, right? So, you know, but there's camps in Australia already. There's camps in I'd say little camps in England and Canada. They've been marching through the streets for quite some time. You just don't see it on the news. But in Canada, they've been marching through the streets, and it's not black people marching through the streets. It's not white people. It's people marching through the streets because they're tired of the fact that if they don't get vaccinated now, they can't get any kind of health care, which is what America's been moving towards for a while. You know. Yeah, Dennis. I told my wife about it. Like I was saying yesterday, we had issue. Sunday and Monday we had issues. We got caught in the snow, had then a nail in the tire on top of that. Then had to sit for hours because people weren't trying to do their job to make sure they came and got us out because they were saying it's too cold or they just didn't feel like dealing with it, or they were trying to cheat us and trying to get us to pay an extra $100 and something besides what we already paid for in roadside assistance. So, but yeah, I definitely talked to her about it. We just literally, once we finally got back, I passed out, tired, needing to sleep, and we got the stuff taken care of, and we got to get ready for travel today to be somewhere where we can finally, at least for a week or so, maybe a couple of weeks, be in a position where we can stay still. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on, but I definitely, she definitely knows about it, put it like that. Thank you, Sister Sonia. Silver said if there's a lack of resource, it's wilderness rules. Doesn't matter if it's paved. Yeah. But yeah, you've got camps always. So you got to comprehend, like, people make excuses for camps. Remember, we're not too far removed from them showing on the news in Georgia where there was still, you know, chattel slavery going on, like not in prison, but, you know, literally white people out here enslaving Mexican people, holding them at gunpoint, raping the women, you know, having children walking around there, stuff like that. Like, same thing, you know. There's camps everywhere. The reality is you got to make sure you set things up to where you're separated. And that's one of the issues that we have, you know, is that we're not in a position to make sure that we're separated. So when stuff goes down, we're going to have a problem. Hold on. Okay. But yeah, so yeah, a lot of stuff they're not going to show in the news. You said, how do camps work with sovereignty? Well, if you're sovereign, then if you're sovereign, you're in a position to where you're separated from all that anyways. Right? Like, so they can't just put you in a camp. They can't just put you in prison. They can't just arrest you. Right? Like, you have to do something that's worthy of them saying that your rights violate somebody else's rights, or you have to sign away your rights. So, like in Australia, for example, what happens in Australia when people get in trouble, right, is they end up going to a store. Let's say the store says that you got to show a vaccination card, and the owner has to. The owner doesn't necessarily have to say that you have to show a vaccination card just because the law says so. But if the owner decides to live up to that standard, they ask you for your vaccination card. If you get caught without a vaccination card, then they're supposed to call the police on you, et cetera, and then they try to track you down. You don't have to. You don't have to do that. Like, you don't have to go to a place where they ask for a vaccination card, especially if you're sovereign, right? Like, if you're sovereign, there are places where people who are sovereign sell clothes, right? It's a lifestyle, like I was saying before. It's like when somebody says buy black. Like, buying black means you got to, like, make it a point to do so. Sometimes to make sure everything is black owned that you're buying and participating in, it takes a lot, right? Like, technically, I can't say I buy black technically sometimes because I use Amazon to buy black. Right, I got to go through somebody white to buy black sometimes, but nevertheless, like, if you're saying I'm going to buy black, it's a lifestyle thing. You got to look and be obedient and see if people do stuff, and even if something is $5 cheaper, just going to Walmart or Walgreens or whatever, like, I'm still going to make sure that I buy black. It's the same thing, sovereignty. Like, there's people out there that are sovereign, that believe what you believe, that live how you live, and you have to be willing to find them, to fellowship with them, to support them, and make sure that those are people that will also support you. Hey, Kelly, how you doing? Yeah, all of us need to participate in sovereignty, right? So, but if you're sovereign, you won't even be in a position to even get there, right? Because they can't just be like, okay, you didn't get vaccinated, we throw you in a thing, right? They couldn't even vote that in, because even if they tried to vote it in, if you're sovereign, especially if you got your house set up like as a micronation and all that stuff, well, then guess what? Like, as a micronation, my home is not even part of the United States or the United States of America, technically. Even the United States of America still has to protect my rights, So, it's different. Like, that's why we talk about getting that paperwork done. You get that paperwork done when you're talking about sovereignty. Well, if that paperwork's done, well, now you're not looked at as the same as everybody else is. Right? Hold on one second. Yeah, they signed in. They signed in. No, I know she got stuff a while ago. He signed in. Oh, okay. All right. Can you take a... Well, I'll get it. Wait a minute. Where's Solomon at? Oh.
He's the officer, Scotty. Yeah, no, I don't know. He has his phone. He don't seem like he's playing his game. I think picture of those tiny.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I heard his voice. I didn't see him.
Yeah.
And it sounded like Mickey Mouse. Please. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What y'all talking about?
Well, I was before I started doing the coat drive. I was talking about some of the stuff some of the first Greco-Roman stuff that I've been learning through these, watching all this stuff and listening to all this stuff and reading all this stuff. But then, and then I had to start doing the coat drive, so they just kind of, I put the phone. That's when you came with the phone was sitting up like that, and I started doing the drive.
Okay.
Yeah. You want to say hi since you put your face in?
Okay. Hi, everyone. Grand Rising. Shalom. Bye-bye.
Yeah, so. But yeah, so what was that? What were we talking about? Sovereignty. So those are things that you have to be aware of and be honest about. And once again, we don't have honest conversation about this stuff. We don't have honest dialogue. So we don't know what's going on with this stuff because we're dishonest with a lot of this stuff, or at least we're not willing to have a conversation about it. So lack of conversation, about it leaves lack of thought, and really lack of thought on is going to lead to lack of empathy, things like that. So people don't even empathize. It's hard to empathize with somebody else, or even where they are in there, or even to see where somebody is in their walk in sovereignty. It's hard to deal with that because we don't, we're not connected to even trying to do, when we talk about being like-minded, when we talk about being equally yoked, all these different terms and things that we're using, like, what are we using? Like, when you want to be yoked with anybody, yoked means you're going to be connected to the same thing. So whoever you're yoked to, when they move, you move, right? And so we have a lot of people who want to move and stuff that's got to be based in sovereignty, right? But we're not trying to move in sovereignty. Like, did you catch that? Right? Like, we got a lot of people who are trying to do a lot of things and move in freedom, but they're not trying to live like as somebody who's free. I was just basically saying, like, you could easily get connected with somebody and, move correctly as far as sovereignty is concerned. You could easily get connected with somebody and move as far as, sowing seed, spiritually, physically, emotionally, like a seed bank, ideas that you guys are bringing to us all the time that are great ideas. Like, we could easily make that stuff happen. We could easily make those things happen. We could easily go through a process of making those things happen like today. But you got to start moving the same. And that's one of the things that they get people to dismiss, right? This idea of, we want this idea of give me the sovereignty, give me the reward. But you're going to have to do this as a people. Remember, when we were talking about the term triumph, triumph is try. 3 people working together as one. Right? Triumph is try. More than one person working together. Triumph is what? Try. 3. Are you willing to work with the community? People who have true triumph, according to the actual definition of the word, right? They work together. As much as you want to say these people are evil, this and that, or whatever, evil people have enough sense to say we need to get together with people that will help us with our evil intentions. Even if they intend to do something evil, they still comprehend we got to work together in evil, right? And here you are trying to do stuff that's righteous and won't work together with others in righteousness. It's going to be tough. The kingdom of heaven suffereth violence. The violent take it by force. How do you take something by force? Well, if you got a kingdom of people that...
Good morning, residents of the house. If you signed up for the coat giveaway and have not been downstairs yet, please do so at this time. Thank you.
All right. Right. So if we're going to, so if we're going to move together, you got to move together. Right? Like, if you're going to move together, you're going to move together. Check this out. Like, that's what I was talking about, even with our leaders that are out here, right? With our leaders, what are we, T. Nathan Loki, even on the TikTok people you think about, I can't think of all their names. T. Nathan Loki is consciously, who's the sister? We had the sister on a couple times to do an interview. Original Silver Fox. And others, because some of them part of our community. I don't know if they want me to tell their business, but there's people with huge followings out here who have been doing a lot for the community and speaking on behalf and even going places and stuff. And when you see them doing a lot of this stuff is stuff that they've had to come out of pocket to do. You see them going from this place to this place to this place, they better have businesses or something set up. What's his name? I Speak 1906, another name, right? That's too much oil? Okay, well, it's not for me. And it's not oil. Nevertheless, it's not oil anyways. Nevertheless, when we're talking about this stuff, right, we have to be in a position to comprehend and to realize and to think about the fact that, we don't support one another. We want the thing to come together, but we don't support. I'm not saying you. I'm not talking about you pointing the finger. I'm saying we as a people, right? So we as a people, we have to make it a point to come together and think on this stuff, right? And think about what is something that we need? What is our standard? What is what we're looking for? How are we trying to grow? And that's where you get the success from. That's where you're going to roll to, right? That's where, what are we as a people? And that's like the missing ingredient a lot of the time. Like we talk a lot about coming together, but we're not together, right? We talk a lot about making things work for our for the greatness, but what is the standard? What is the flag? What is the thing we're all going to come underneath to say that this is what we stand under together, right? Is Blanche on here, or is that a different Blanche that I'm thinking? Right? But you have to come against it. You have to come against it, and we're trying to come against people that work in groups, and we're trying to come against them, in single file. They got hundreds of thousands ready to, they got millions, if not billions, but at least hundreds of millions, at least 1 billion people around the world convinced that if you, for example, just something simple, if you don't take a shot, then you should go ahead and get locked up. Now, even if, let's say 7 billion people disagree with that, now watch this, 7 billion people can disagree with that, with what the billion say you should get locked up if you don't get a shot. 7 billion people can disagree. Here's the problem. And this is what we don't want to have honest conversation about. If you can't have at least 1 billion of those 7 billion people come together, then what does it matter? Right? Like that's the problem. So let's say we got 1,000 people in your area that think that what you live by is wrong. Okay, well, if there's only 10 people, now look, if there's 10 people, that can be enough, because the Bible says, two of us can come together, put flight to, 1,000, and 3 of us can come together, give flight to 10,000, right? So that could still be enough, but you got to come together, and you got to be on one accord, and you got to have yourself straight. Have you ever thought about the fact that you can have 1-2 people who are rich? You have 2-3 people who are rich show up and buy up a whole town, and then have everybody else trying to figure out what's going on and not realize that everybody's working for 2-3 people, right? But we don't come together with that same mindset, like they're still running the same game. Like when you get a chance, we might have to talk about this tonight because I didn't really get a chance to go over it today. But when you get the chance, start looking at Caesar, right? Start looking at Caesar and what they were going through all that time. And I'm talking about what I guess you got to start maybe with Caesar around 55 BC till when he was killed. What is that, 47, 46, 44 BC, somewhere in there? I don't know. But look at all that stuff that's still going on. And you literally had one person. We just think about Caesar, but when you study it, it was one person who had all these connections, and then he had what was called a triumvirate. There's 3 people. 3 people were ended up beating a whole Senate and Rome into submission, and they were using the same tactics that they did today. Even the people that were against Caesar, right? Even the people that were against Caesar, So like even the people that were against Caesar. Right? Oh, that's you? Okay, I didn't know you changed the name. I'm following you right now. All right. Awesome. Yeah, we had to start this whole 3rd page. I made sure that we're going to stay in contact with you. I had you on our contact list, so we have other people calling out for us from time to time. So as we get bigger and doing a lot more. So I'm glad to see you on, though. Glad everything's going well with you. But yeah, you got to recognize, you got to remember that all these things, like the same stuff that was going on, like for example, filibustering, that's Roman, Greco-Roman, really, right? Comprehending where like the feminist movement really should have started. It should have started with the Greeks. A lot of people don't know, like Spartans. So in the movie with the Spartans and stuff, women were just these weak, frail things. And, the Spartan king's wife ended up getting, forced into a relationship, we'll just say it like that, with somebody who wasn't her husband and all that. But if you look at the Spartans, who, by the way, were black people, even though they weren't necessarily righteous, but they were black people. Nevertheless, when you look at the Spartans and you see a Spartan wife, people don't know that Spartan women, they ran the show. Like, people don't know that. That's why one of the reasons why Greeks are so anti-women They were already anti-women, but especially so when they became like a nation, and then when they became the Greco-Roman nation, and then when they became a Roman nation, and they kept on being against women, is because in the Spartans were a war-going people, right? We'll probably get into this tonight, right? But the Spartans were heavily into war. Everything was about war, fighting, things like that, right? But the Spartans, the Spartans were not from Sparta, right? What they called Sparta actually used to belong to another people. Familiar story, right? No wonder we like these, Americans like to talk about these people so much. The Spartans were actually used to have a festival every year in which they would remind themselves about how much they needed to come out of, or how much that they needed to fight against these people they already defeated. Why did they do that? Because it was a reminder that they were on stolen land. So every year they would remind themselves they need to fight against everybody because they were on stolen land, right? That's what they did every year. As a reminder that they were fighting against people because they're slaves, people that they call slaves, their slaves were people that used to live there, and they just took over where they lived. So that was what you were actually dealing with when you were dealing with the Spartan land, or whatever the Spartans. But what would happen too is that they were always fighting. So they were always sending young men, and usually young men would die because you have a high mortality rate. So you had women who would basically be married at young ages, like many cultures do, and then their young husbands go to battle, and their young husbands would die. Now, when the young husbands would die, what they would do is they would give part of what that husband had to the state, and a significant part would go straight to his wife. So there was no will or anything like that. Like, it was going to go to his wife. So what would happen is now you have this young woman who's lost a young husband but has a lot of money, and she would end up getting married again, probably to somebody who's a young person, young man getting ready to go to war. He would go into war. Then as soon as he would go into war, and he would he would die. Now she's got a whole lot more money. And so what would happen with Spartans and their Senate and stuff, the Senate was actually pushed around by the women. And if the women decided that they were going to try and fight, if the men decided they were going to try and do something, or the Senate, their Senate was a little different. You had like two kings, like King Leonidas would have been one of two kings, but you had two kings. You had like five, I forget what these five people are called, but basically they were like five overseers, and they were supposed to oversee the government. And then you had like a Senate and people underneath them. And if any of these people got out of pocket, then the women would just be like, we're just going to buy up more land, because the women ran stuff. And so by the time they got to a certain age, if they were tired of just remarrying and seeing husbands die, they would just be by themselves, be single, and raise their children. And, so now they had young daughters that were rich, and their young daughters got married to other young men and they got richer and richer and richer. So the young girls were basically, or the women were controlling the whole thing. The men were still in charge of the country, so to speak, but it was the women who would say, like, we're going to give you money for this or not, right? So if you say you want to go to war, you're running out of money, you need more money for war, and this fight that's about to go on and that's about to happen, then if you had somebody who was down, the women had to say yes or no, and if you acted wrong, they just buy up some more stuff and be done with you, right? And then you had to come through them even harder before they release it back to the state. So the Greeks, when they got together and they saw that was something they hated. So all these people that they tell you to look up, all these great Greek minds and all this stuff that, these Athenian minds and all this stuff that they tell you need to look at and listen and study. Look at what they said about Greek women, especially those Greek Spartan women. They said that these women were a problem because they had power. So, if you want to see where stuff started happening, that was before it came to you as a people. Israel, that's not you, right? Kemet, that's not you. West Africa, right? Twi, Mali, Ashanti, but that's not who I'm thinking of. Well, I guess Mali was I was looking at, but there's somebody else. Timbuktu, all that. That's not you. That's not how we roll. That's how they roll. They were afraid when their women were in power. We had no problem because women and men, we work hand in hand, right? So that's what we're trying to institute, stuff like that. And it's hard to do it when you're not together as a group. You're around a whole bunch of people that are living around you, Doesn't matter what their skin color is. You're around a whole bunch of people who disbelieve that they should come together for anything that's not Greco-Roman. And even when they're trying to do things, they believe that they should, against you. They're trying to do things against, or I'm sorry, even when they're trying to fight for your people, they're trying to fight for your people through a Greco-Roman lens. Now, how do you fight a Greco-Roman? By being a Greco-Roman. Right? Like, how do you fight a Greco-Roman and you're going to be a Greco-Roman? Amen. Yeah, destruction of misogyny and misandry and all that stuff and division, right? But how do you destroy a Greco-Roman and you living like a Greco-Roman? It doesn't make sense. Or you can say you educate him, but you got to educate, you have to take him outside the system, or else all you're going to do is educate him as a Greco-Roman. And a lot of people, we were introduced to stuff as Greco-Romans, and then we tried to figure out why it doesn't make sense. Like, for example, why does the calendar seem to be something that's always under dispute? Because the calendar is not reality. Like, here's the deal. The Greco-Romans, they were using the calendar. Julius Caesar was over there too. That's why I've been studying Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar is, if you want to understand what you're doing today and what was done before you, look at what Julius Caesar decided to keep and what he decided to change. And that's basically what you've been living by. It hasn't changed. Adolf Hitler was trying to be Julius Caesar. Joseph Stalin was trying to be Julius Caesar. Right? Peter the Great trying to be Julius Caesar. Napoleon trying to be Julius Caesar. It's the same person. It's the same spirit. And Julius Caesar was trying to basically, be a better version, a more polished version of Caligula and of Nero. And Nero, that's that Antichrist spirit. Right? You're having the same situation show up over and over again. But look up Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar had an issue. He had been at war for 10 years, and he was supposed to be their number one. Now think about this. Julius Caesar was at war for 10 years and was supposed to be their highest spiritual council. He was supposed to be like the priest of Rome. But he was out there killing people, the Gauls and stuff, and taking over Gergovia and what's the one that starts with an A? I can't remember the one that starts with an A, but basically taking over all these Gallic lands and stuff, right? And fighting the Gauls. And so here he is messing these Gauls over, beating these Gauls up. When he goes into so he was basically away from his position. He also was supposed to be the person who was supposed to make sure the calendar was straight, because their calendar was off because they didn't live by a proper calendar. So he had to go back and fix their calendar, but he hadn't done so in 10 years. So I forget which year it is, but there's like a year that's actually considered to be the longest year ever, because they had to add something like 40 or 50 days to it, just to make sure that it worked. So after he did that, once he had more power before they killed him, he had a little bit of time. Finally, his stuff slowed down, and he went to Rome to finally start getting business and everything back on track. So he actually went to Kemet and studied the Kemetic calendar and how that worked. And basically, they say they fixed it. So this is why I tell you, like, years move and years can move for different people and stuff. People don't know how this stuff works. You think you're going by the calendar, but it's not actually the same calendar the Kemetic people use. So somebody would be like, well, how did the Kemetic people do this and that? And, they had this, that, whatever, blah, blah, and how were they able to do this? Well, Kemetic people, they had 12 months, but each month out of the 12 was the same amount of days. And then as they needed to, they had 5 days here or there through certain things that happened to make sure that things would get back on track. So it averaged out to like 365 days. So, but the Romans were like, hey, we need 12 months. Now remember, at one point they only had 10 months. They moved it up to 12 months, but then they still were wrong because they didn't know how to tell time correctly, right? So what they did is they said, okay, they just randomly put stuff in order, right? And they were like, okay, this is what we need. What we'll do is that we have these days. So like February, for example, February was they considered February to be a bad luck month, right? So February was not a great month. Since February wasn't a great month, you had to make sure that you, that basically like they shortened the days on the calendar. So instead of it being 30 days for each month to start, they said, okay, we'll make February 28 days. Then eventually they tried to make it 29, but then they made it back to 28 again because of the bad luck, which is why you have a leap year and it's on February and it still doesn't get up to 30 because you're still living by somebody else's culture that says February is a bad luck month. Now, why would they make Black History Month on a bad luck month? See, it's even deeper. Like when people say, oh, you just gave us the shortest days of the year. It's deeper than that. February is supposed to be the month that you don't want anything of value to happen. So why would you put Black History Month on the month? Now, I understand it started off as Black History Week, and it was started off by a person that was black. The person that made it the whole month was a white person. Nevertheless, why would they allow you to have it on that month? It's not random. But when you don't know where you came from, or you don't know what preceded you, or even when you're studying culture. That's why I say study everybody's culture. Know your culture, know yourself. But when you study somebody else's culture, make sure you know what they're talking about. Because a lot of times they don't know what they're talking about. Right? But then again, once again, so February, bad luck month. Then what they did is they said, okay, so we're going to take a couple days from February and then we'll just redistribute the extra days to other months. That's why you got 31 days for some months and 30 days for the other, and you got this one month that has 28. Why does one month have 28? That was a bad luck month. And then when we need a leap year, well, we can still give the extra year there, the extra day there. It still won't be 30, so we still won't be giving it as much life as the other months. And then we can go right back to 28. It's religion. They would call it, if I said something like that, somebody would come on here, they would say that's too religious. But you live like that every day and you don't call it religion. Caesar was literally not only the person who was supposed to put the calendar in place, not only was he the person running the show, not only was he the person making sure he was fighting all the battles, but also Caesar was their head religious council. So whatever he said as far as religious matters went, and whatever he said as far as the calendar went. Right? Culture. So that's why we're saying, like, in all the stuff we're doing, even in this setup or whatever, it's about culture. Right? And by the way, like, how did Caesar get, culturally speaking? See, this is culture. Culturally, how did Caesar even get to the position that he had where he was running the show the way he was running the show? You know how? You know how he got there? Because he had people that backed him up. He made sure that he took care of his fighters. And it was his fighters that made him Caesar. That's why you think, when you think Caesar, you think emperor. Right? The reason why you think that is because he took care of his people. He didn't take care of all of Rome. Now, I'm not saying he was a great guy and all that. I'm trying to show you how you got to get this across and coming together. Caesar did not take time out to take care of everybody in Rome. He made a triumvirate, those three people that came together to run the show. He made sure that they married amongst each other. He made sure he took care of his children, even if he wasn't in his children's lives. He made sure he took care of them. He made sure even if he had mistresses and stuff, I'm not saying we should have them. I'm just trying to show you he took care of the things that he knew were going to be people that would be faithful to him. He took care of his generals, his centurions, right? All these people that were there, he took care of his armies. He made sure they got paid. Matter of fact, when he would go to other places and loot and pillage and stuff, he only looted and pillages. It's wrong, but hear what I'm saying. He looted and he pillaged, and then he would turn around and give it to his men. Would he keep some for himself? Sure. But he would make sure his men were great. He made sure that he eventually opened up the Senate, right? When they tried to come against him and then they couldn't beat him and they started running away, and therefore they didn't have enough people to even have a Senate to run things. So guess who he put in the Senate? He put his people who had been fighting for him for 10, 15, 20 years sometimes straight. He said, well, you gave up all this time, gave up time with your family, your wives, your children, all this. He said, the least I can do is give you a whole bunch of money, give you a whole bunch of land, give you a whole bunch of power, and now we can make decisions together. I hear you, Dennis. I see you. You said, would I run for president if that was up for votes? I wouldn't run for president because I wouldn't be able to do what I do now. I've thought about political office before. People ask me that a lot, but even in that, the only way I would do it, first of all, is if I had support of the diaspora. If the Most High, first of all, the Most High would tell me to do it. But I wouldn't think that just because I was in the office I could change things, but I would know I could speak on things and I could represent a mindset. That's the only reason it's ever been of any interest to me when people keep asking, because people ask a lot, not as much as they used to, but people ask a lot. I tell people, like, the only way I would run for anything is if I knew that I had support, and then if I made it, that people would understand, look, I'm going to do everything I can to change things, but I'm also here to represent your point of view. So I'm going to speak for the unspoken, right? I'm not here to be random in anything or just come up with anything without thought behind it. Hold on one second, y'all. I'm checking on something real quick. Make sure they're okay over here.
General. How you doing, John?
Yeah.
What for your son?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, we'll try to let everybody know earlier.
Oh, y'all down all the time? Oh, y'all have a blessed day.
Same here.
Y'all pray. Ooh, 7 o'clock.
Yeah. But that's all about people coming together, and all the stuff that we're talking about is about that. Like all the stuff that Julius Caesar is doing, talking about, etc., is all about people coming together. He set up, and when you study what he did, he literally set up. He literally set up something. Thank you. He set up something for all of us to come together. He set up something, or well, not all of us, excuse me. He set up something where the people who he knew were going to be part of his community, he made sure that they would all be taken care of. Right now, he was very selfish with it, but he made sure, like, if you scratched his back, he scratched yours. Right? And so, like, that's the political setup. Even when he was doing it, he understood from the beginning, like, if I'm going to get what I want, other people are going to have to get what they want too. And he looked at who were the people that supported him the most to get him what he needed. He said, y'all will be the people that fight for me. Okay, I'm going to make sure that I take care of you from top to bottom. So the people that were new, the people that were older, the people that had even retired, whatever, like Caesar was always going to take care of them. And so because they knew he was always going to take care of them, like there were times that Caesar was supposed to come back to Rome, and they told him, like, we don't like the fact that you're getting power and stuff, come back or whatever. And so they would tell, his people who were, his fighters, his centurion, his guards, the people who were in formation, following him everywhere, his legions, all this stuff, they would just straight up be like, yo, like, you guys, they'd be like, Caesar needs to come back. And so Caesar would tell people straight up, like, hey, you guys can go back. Thank you for being with me all this time. You guys have seen what we've done together. I'm thankful. I'm grateful. And then guess what he'd do on the way out? He'd give him, stuff like he'd give him a slave. I'm not saying we should have slaves. I'm just trying to get you to comprehend how he knew what he needed to do. He'd give, like, each person a slave, and he'd give each one of them, like, 2 years' pay. And then he said, go ahead, thank you very much, I appreciate you, right? And so those people wouldn't go back to Rome. They would leave Caesar, but then they would, like, basically just go somewhere else in Gaul and stay put, waiting for him to say, okay, when are we going to move next? What's the next move? Why did they do that? Because Caesar was going to take care of them no matter what. Right? Like, but Caesar had a vision in play, and Caesar was being selfish, sure, but I'm telling you, Caesar was going to take care of him no matter what. And people will move with you if you're going to take care of them. And what I'm telling you is, like, this system is set up where we don't take care of each other. And so as we don't take care of one another, we don't take care of each other, we're in a bad spot. We're in a position where we don't trust, we don't know, we don't honor each other, we don't like each other, we don't support, we don't empathize. It's like, you need to just give me whatever's wanted. It's like, no, if we honor each other, then we have what's called an alliance. People talk about this being an ally. An alliance is on paper. We agree that if I do what I'm supposed to do, then you'll do what you're supposed to do. And if you do what you're supposed to do, then I'll do what I'm supposed to do. That's the missing ingredient. You can have everybody talking about black power 17 times a week, but until black people come together. Malcolm X said it like this. He said, if I strike you like this, it might not mean much. It might hurt. It might sting, but it's not really going to do too much damage. But if I were to reduce some real damage, all I got to do is bring all of those 5 digits, into alignment, right? And then when I punch you, really, it should be like this. He did like this, but it really should be like this, right? When I give you that punch this time, it's going to be something different. Tracy said, Senate begins debates today on likely doomed voting rights bills. Crazy we have once resolved issue. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be the same stuff over and over again. It's been the same stuff for centuries at this point. If they were doing the same thing in Greece, then why are we thinking they won't do the same thing today? It said the underdog density of Jewish, it's had to bring up to mainstream of popular culture belief. Yeah, very much so. And they always moved as a group in that. You must have the desire to do the work and live culture, yeah. And also, and had a desire to come together. And watch this. At some point, we've talked about this before, it has to go from a want to a must Must. Like it has to go from a want to a need to a must even. Like I want to do it has to become I need to do it. When I need to do it has to go to I must do it. Right? And people are always somewhere in there, right? Some people don't even care. Some people don't want to do it, right? But some people want to do it, but don't really, feel like they need to do it. Some people will go, I need to do it. Well, that's better because you give more attention to it, but need doesn't mean but when I must do it means I wake up and I've decided that's what I will do. Everything that I'm doing is based off of this. And a lot of people, like, you have to be careful. A lot of people talk about vision or goals and all this stuff or whatever, but then they're like, okay, I'm gonna be partial in there, I want to start a business. I want people to give me money. I know what I'm worth. I know my value, this or that, whatever. But man, people just want stuff for free, blah, blah. Well, guess what? Like all business owners do in the beginning is you give your product out for free. And then after a while, then you limit how much you give it out for free. Right. But if nobody knows what your product is, well, no, nobody has to give it out for free. Even if you're going to give it to somebody to submit it to the place that you want it to be sold in, you got to give it to somebody and show them. Or somebody else has to have at least, like what a lot of people do is you come on the shoulders of somebody else. Somebody else is giving that product. People like that product. You say you have the same type of product, but then you still, guess what? You got to give it for a cheaper price than the person who originally gave the product. Like nobody's out here just saying, I'm going to straight up start off with a product for $500. When somebody else is selling that product for $500 and they've been around, the name brand says that their product is better than yours. You got to build up your name. So you might need to give your product out for $125 before you can start talking about $500. But then once you start giving it out and you have a customer base and you tell people like, hey, this is just a sale. This is just the beginning. This is just till we get stuff started. But once we get going, prices are going to raise. You're honest with your customer base. You start your own you get your customer base together. There's a lot of people who would say like, I think Coke is more popular than Pepsi, right? So Coke makes more money than Pepsi. But there's still some people that roll with Pepsi no matter what. So Pepsi makes enough even if they're not on the same level as Coke. Why does Pepsi make enough? Solomon, where are you going? Where are you going? Where? Oh, okay. Yeah, but people will focus on Pepsi and they'll help out with Pepsi because they're faithful to Pepsi. It's the same thing, right? Like we have to stop thinking we've got to be the Potter's house in order to be deemed to be successful, right? Like there are people that will come here and do stuff or whatever, and we might not have what the Potter's house has as far as the amount of people, but we're not trying to do the same thing either. So we're not trying to sell, so to speak. I'm not trying to say we're making, selling everything. But I mean, you got to have finances up in place too. But we're not trying to sell what the Potter's house is trying to sell. TD Jakes is great in his lane. Let him be in his lane. I'm not TD Jakes. And you got to think about stuff like that too. But it's cultural. You have to have a group of people that are willing to come together and are willing to do whatever it takes, any means necessary. People will get there when they start seeing that what they're investing in is changing. Their life is changing their mind. It's helping them to succeed. It's helping their children to do better. Right? Any means necessary. That's when people start saying, I'll open my home up to you and stuff. Right? Like any means necessary, but they got to see something that's worthy of that. So we've been all over the place today. I don't know if we'll post. I guess we can post this on YouTube. I don't know if we'll post this on YouTube or not. But thank you all for being on. No podcast today, obviously. Once again, thank you for hanging in there with us. We had a lot of issues. Got caught in a snowstorm. Then the tire hit a nail. Then had to get that fixed, and then had to rest so that we'd be prepared to do this today and then get on the road again today to hopefully be able to rest for a week or so, hopefully a couple of weeks before we do this again. So we'll try to make sure that we say, yes, please post this. I'm so far behind on posting and just getting in contact with you guys. Y'all don't even know. But nevertheless, thank you all. We appreciate you. So now you see what's been going on. I will try my best to ensure. Yeah, I know, Brother Dennis. Thank you. Yeah, Brother Dennis was up there checking on us the whole time. I was half awake trying to figure out how to put a tire on and then wait for somebody to help us. But we thank you. We appreciate you guys. Thank you for your prayers. Pray for us as we continue to travel and take care of things. Prayerfully, we'll be on live. What's today? Tuesday? Yeah. So prayerfully, we should be on live today. People that I missed for calls yesterday, I will try to make it up today, but going to be traveling on the road for quite some time. Prayerfully, we'll be able to be on live later on, but I will be I will be behind the wheel, so more than likely, so I probably won't be able to. I don't know. We'll figure it out. It might have to be like a short live. Maybe we'll take a break at 8 from traveling. We can do a live, stay in place for like 20, 30 minutes, and have some conversation and stuff, and then we can get back to it if we can be finished, and then I'll see you guys tomorrow. We do need to make up our early riser Bible study session, so let's just, for the sake of, because I'm going to be extremely tired, so let's just say Friday. Let's look for Friday to do that, Friday rising, and we'll do like a Q&A like we did last time. So those of you who show up to the early riser Bible study, we'll do it like that, okay? So that's it. Everything else should be back on track. I do apologize, but literally I just haven't been in a position. I didn't even do any videos or anything at all last couple days, so just trying to get back on track. But thank you so much. Appreciate you all. Stay safe out there. Continue to take care of one another. And hopefully, even though there were many different things that happened today, hopefully you were able to get something from it and hear what the Most High is saying unto the assembly, and not just hear it, also do something about it, right? Thank you so much. We appreciate you all. You're all great kings and queens. And this has been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Sermon to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice to the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again, please remember, as always, you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you're fearfully, wonderfully made in you, which is all of us working together. Will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. Take care.